Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's View on Ahlulbayt TV. Today we're talking about the psychological well-being of a woman, how important it is for women to have a healthy mind. Today with me in the studio I have Sister Nazia Hussain talking to me about this subject, who has studied clinical psychology. Assalamu alaikum, Sister.
Alaikum salam.
So we were talking, just before the break, we were talking about depression, anxiety, different forms of mental disorders that women may suffer from severely or mildly. And for example, what we can do to prevent this from us suffering from this, and also what du'as and supplications and prayers that we can recite to alleviate ourselves from these such disorders. But what I wanted to ask you now was, how do we identify that somebody is suffering from clinical depression, sort of severe depression? What are the symptoms, so that maybe, for example, we can identify somebody at home or friend member that they may be suffering from this?
Okay. First of all, we should know that depression is of 3 types: mild, moderate, and severe. Mild depression is the most common form of depression among females, which obviously can be easily dealt with through various strategies. But when we talk about clinical depression, that's when you need professional help. That's when you might need a professional psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist to come in and treat the problem. One thing is that, according in psychology, they say that psychological disorders cannot be cured; they can only be treated. Now, that depends on the severity of the problem. When we talk about clinical depression, first we have to identify if it's severe, and for that there are 5 aspects of one's life that needs to be affected in order to classify it as clinical. First is your emotional aspect. If you're being emotionally affected to such an extent that you cannot communicate with anyone, you cannot interact with anyone, your daily functioning is being affected, you are spending a lot of time in crying, lamenting. If your cognitions are quite pessimistic, you're looking at the negative side of everything, you're always sad and bitter, and you're blaming yourself for every single thing that goes wrong in your life. When you're only focusing on the negative views of all the things that you're dealing with in your lifestyle, when your emotions are being severely affected, then obviously you can easily tell. You tend to inhibit yourself socially. You don't meet with people, you avoid any kind of contact, you don't want to talk much, you like to be left alone in a room, you don't want to face the world. Obviously these are all the things that are being affected, and it's because there is some problem in your emotions. Second thing is, when you are cognitively impaired, it means your thought processes are being affected. You tend to lose things. You can't memorize things. It's hard for you to remember, recall a specific event or a person, or you find it really hard to concentrate on your work, which obviously you used to manage quite easily earlier on. Third is physiological health. It's being affected. You get migraines, constipation, dizzy spells, headaches, nausea, or you tend to lose appetite, and you're losing your weight quite rapidly, or you're eating too much and you're putting on a lot of weight. That could even lead to eating disorders like obesity and anorexia, which is obviously again quite prevalent among females comparatively to males. Sometimes what happens is one problem can lead to another. For example, one person might be depressed, and because of depression, that person will start suffering from some other psychological problem. Like depression can lead to obesity, depression can lead to anorexia, depression can even lead to suicidal thinking. You might attempt suicide, or depression can lead to phobias. When anxieties become really severe, they can lead to phobic disorders. So one problem can lead to another. So it's always best to identify the first problem so that no other problem arises from that. So there are certain things which you have to keep in mind. If there's a yes to all those things, then yes, you need help. First thing is...
Can we just take we've got a caller on the line.
Okay.
So we'll just go to the caller. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah, you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
I just have a question for Nasir. The question is, does our diet affect our mental health?
I'm sorry, sister, could you repeat the question?
Diet.
Does our diet affect our mental health?
Right, yes, thank you so much. That's a very good question. Thank you so much. Khud Hafiz. That's a very valid question, isn't it? Of course, diet must affect your mental health.
Definitely. Before I come to the question, I would like to complete what I was saying. I was talking about the symptoms that are obviously the first signs of clinical depression.
Yeah.
If you're suffering from insomnia, or you've got hypersomnia, meaning that you tend to sleep more, or you have lost your sleep completely, finding it really difficult to sleep. Second thing is appetite. If your appetite is being affected, you're eating more, you're feeling hungry all the time, you've got cravings 24/7, or you've lost your appetite completely and you don't feel like eating, you're literally starving yourself. Third thing is your emotional well-being. Is your mood being affected in such a way that people are actually noticing that you have changed as a person? You become more sad, more irritable, and you tend to lose your temper on little things. When your emotions are being affected, it tends to affect your behavior as well, because obviously your mood rules your body. Another thing that has to be noted is the things that you used to enjoy in your life, for example, gardening, or if you had a hobby, reading, now you've lost it all. You don't feel like doing anything. You would rather sit alone, not talk to anyone, not do anything, rather than to engage yourself into anything positive.
Right.
If all these things are happening, then yes, you must consult a professional. You need help.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what about if you do consult, say somebody in the family identifies that someone does suffer from the symptoms that you said, and then they say, I think you should go and see somebody about it, and then they think, but I don't think I suffer from this, and then they go and see the consultant or the psychologist, and they're saying, well, I feel fine, How isn't there denial also, the fact that
it is definitely denial. It is definitely denial, because the person who is actually suffering does not acknowledge it as a problem. He is so pessimistic and has such negative views about himself, and he's got such a negative attitude towards things and people, that he loses the sense of reasoning, and the person doesn't focus is that, okay, something's wrong with me. Or there is something that can be done in order to change the situation or to solve the problem. So problem-solving strategies are almost, you can say, gone in a person who's severely depressed. The only form of escape that they tend to see is suicide. They think, if I end my life, I will end all my suffering, which obviously is contradictory to our religion, because Allah says no matter what you're going through, you must not lose hope, because Allah is there to help you out. All you need to do is ask for help. Obviously, you have to be more tolerant and patient, because if you're going through trials and tribulations in your life, they might not just go away like that. It will take some time, maybe months, years. But at least you can build up coping strategies so you can fight with those trials and tribulations and difficulties that you are facing in your life. You have to accept. Acceptance is the most important thing. Second thing is avoidance. If you can avoid it, good. If you can't, don't think too much over it. Don't let it affect you. Sometimes people will just focus on one thing, and they tend to focus so much on that particular problem that they are unable to solve it or to look at something else which might help them in escaping from that problem.
It might make them feel worse, as in, like, if they feel that, yes, actually I do suffer from depression now, I am upset with myself and I'm not happy with myself, it'll almost plummet them even lower to a lower level, and then they might not be able to sort of overcome and change their sort of sight on something else.
Because the feeling of helplessness is so strong that the person believes that, there's no one who can help me out, nobody can change the situation, there is nothing that can be done, it's all over. I mean, he has no optimism in his life at all. It's like a child trapped in a dark room on his own who can't find his way out. So the therapist, the counselor, the psychologist actually helps that person in looking at the brighter side of the picture. There's so many therapies available for depression, anxiety, and phobias. Cognitive behavior therapy, for example, it changes your way of thinking and behavior. So yeah, you can always seek professional help.
Okay. We actually have another caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
I listened to this Mr. Ahlulbayt thing, and there was a point where the sister mentioned that in order to feel or get off stress, depression, we should basically really strong and do all such as studying, which I'm very much aware of. But what if you're doing this for a long time and you realize there is no such effect? Does that mean that we're doing wrong thing, or is it because you would probably say that around that we're expecting he wants more, you're just expecting to do it, so they're not. But then they don't, it is, there is no effect. Still stress affected. So how can you shed light on this scenario?
Okay, just to clarify the question, the sister is saying is that, say we are reading all these du'as and supplications and salahs that you mentioned, but they're not actually having an effect. Is that because they're reading it on the wrong day? Does that matter if you're reading, certain supplications should be read on certain days? And also, why it might not be having an effect? What should the sister do in order for it to have an effect, in order for her to be relieved from stress?
Okay. When we talk about prayer, we don't say that there's a specific date or time. You can pray to Allah any time. There is no time for that. As far as supplications and invocations are concerned, yes, there are certain du'as, there are certain supplications and invocations which have to be recited on a specific day and a specific time, and when you're in a specific state. But it doesn't apply for all kinds of supplications and invocations. There are certain du'as which can be recited any day and often, but then there are certain mustahab prayers which are recommended on certain days. For example, Thursday night is considered as one of the most desirable times when you must recite Dua Kumail or Ziyarat-e-Warisa or Ziyarat-e-Ashura. But just because if somebody is going through a problem and a difficult period in their lives and they are praying as well, that does not mean that things are not going to change. Maybe that's the way Allah has destined you. Maybe Allah wants you to go through that trial or tribulation in order to get something or achieve something in future. Maybe He's testing your patience, your tolerance. Maybe He's testing your faith. Does this person have faith in me? Will he continue praying to me even if I don't answer him right away? I mean, our prophets, our imams, they went through trials and tribulations, they never gave up. So how can we expect that if we have asked Allah, who has the power and ability to listen and fulfill our desires, will say no to us? He wouldn't. Yes, one thing is true, that sometimes our deeds come in the way of our prayers acceptance. So yes, if we are reciting a dua, we must take into consideration that we are praying 5 times a day. We are not neglecting our prayers. And obviously this is for girls, so are they in their proper hijab? Are they following the rules of hijab? When they are praying, do they have doubts in their heart when they're asking Allah for something? Or they have full faith, no, I'm asking for it, Allah will definitely help me out. And obviously for prayers and supplications, you have to find tawassul, wasila, and intercession. And Ahlulbayt and the holy imams are the best tawassul for us, as the Quran says that you have to find the wasila, source, so to find nearness to Allah. So when you're reciting something, when you're asking Allah for help, you must consider the holy imams as well, and through them you can ask Allah for your desires.
Yes, that was a very good question. Thank you for calling in for that question. And if you two at home would like to ask any questions or share your views and experiences with us, then please do feel free to call in on the numbers on the screen, and we would like to hear from you. So sister, the question before that caller asked about, does diet affect our mental health? And that's a very important question. If you could answer that, that would be great.
Okay, one thing in our religion, there is logic behind everything. Allah does not make rules and regulations for us without any reasoning or without any cause.
Yes.
If Allah has made certain things haram or forbidden for us, that's because they are not good for our health. Now, this health could be spiritual, physiological, or psychological in nature. But then there are certain types of foods which are not only permissible but are highly recommended by our holy imams. And when we reflect upon their lifestyles, we see that they tend to use these kind of products, food, in their daily lives because it had a positive impact on their behavior. So, as I mentioned earlier, that caffeinated drinks, fizzy drinks, sugary stuff, they do stimulate stress in your body. So you have to go for those kind of food which are beneficial for your health, not just physiological but also psychological health. For example, according to some studies, red chili has a very bad effect on your temper. It makes you more angry because it tends to raise your blood pressure.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure what you're eating. Too much red meat is not good either. You have to take fruits in your daily life, fruits that are obviously recommended by our holy imams, like pear or figs or pomegranate, olives. I mean, they have such powerful effects on your body and mind that you will be amazed that there are so many things we will just get rid of with just eating the right things, and you don't have to go to the doctor or a GP for any problem. Just eating the right stuff can actually get rid of a lot of problems that you're facing in your daily life.
Okay. So say if you're suffering from a lot of worry, a lot of, and it's not sort of so much anxiety, you're just worrying all the time. What type of foods would affect that and make that worse, and that worry would then lead to stress? So what should we be ensuring that we are reading and reciting, and what we're eating? What have the Ahlulbayt said that, these are the type of foods that would help you?
Like one of the sisters mentioned earlier, that sometimes we might be asking Allah for help, or we might be reciting du'as, but it doesn't work, it doesn't have effect. You have to make sure that the things that you are eating are from halal source.
Okay.
Your source of income is halal, because if you even eat like one morsel of haram food, it will not only affect you but 7 generations to come. So that's one thing you have to take into consideration, that the things that you are eating, are they pure, are they halal, are they permissible? So that's quite important. People tend to go to supermarkets and they just see the we sign and they will just buy it. But you have to make sure it doesn't contain alcohol. It is made by somebody who's a believer. Okay, you can't eat things made from the hands of an unbeliever and fiddle. So there's so many factors that contribute to things which can lead to problems, and obviously your praise as not being accepted.
Okay, well, I mean, how in a busy lifestyle in today's society, a lot of us do suffer from stress, whether it's work-related, family-related, or just, generally, some people just like to worry and as a result become quite stressed out. How can we implement a good sort of stress management scheme in order to overcome this?
For every individual, obviously there is a different set of strategy that he or she needs to apply in daily life. You can't just apply one rule for everyone. Some people, they tend to relieve stress by listening to the latmiyas or mankhabats or the recitation of the Quran. They tend to relax. Some people like to talk about their problems to a friend or a loved one, and that helps them a lot. Sometimes just going for a bit of exercise or jogging or a walk in the park can help. Sleep is obviously quite important. You must get enough sleep. And apart from diet, sleep is also quite important. And there are 4 A's that you must keep in your mind. Whatever stressful situation you are going through, you must try to avoid the stressor. Second thing is alter the stressor. And third is to adapt to the stressor, to get used to it, to compromise, to accept. I mean, if you keep all these things in your mind, it does help a lot. Sometimes you don't accept the way things are. We try to change it. And when we are unable to change it, and when our expectations are not met, we become more anxious and more depressed.
Okay. So when you say identify the stressor and work with the stressor, you mean find out what is stressing you out.
Exactly.
And then if you can't overcome it or dispel it, just work around it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like sometimes it helps to keep a diary or a book in which you can write down your emotions and your problems. Some people find it quite soothing. Some people like to read books or poetry. That helps them a lot. And obviously, the concept of azadari, listening to majalis and lectures from scholars, that also helps you a lot. So anything that you tend to enjoy, any activity, any hobby, adopt that. Try to fit that into your busy lifestyles. You must take time out for yourself, for relaxation, for exercise, for meeting with your loved ones. Try to do things which you like to enjoy. That will take your mind off the stressor. And avoidance obviously is also important. If you'll keep on facing the thing or the person that's causing stress, that won't help.
Yeah, you mentioned exercise. How important is exercise? How can physical exercise help with the mental health and improving it?
It does, because obviously if you're physically unhealthy, if you're physically unfit, you can't expect your mind to work properly either. For example, if there are certain deficiencies in your body, your mind will not be able to function the way it is supposed to. Memory loss, dizziness, headaches, migraines, constipation, all these things are related to stress. So if you've got all these problems, then obviously it's going to create more stress. So you have to find the ways out. You have to find the means, the resources to alleviate such stresses in your life. And you have to ventilate your feelings. Don't let it build up inside, because that can lead to other problems like nightmares and phobias.
Okay, so and also I suppose overeating, that can also add to stress. I mean, we touched upon obesity, the fact that depression can lead to obesity. But what about if you just generally like to eat a lot of foods and fatty foods, like fast foods? Like a lot of people today will eat fast foods. And can that create, so if you were not depressed or stressed out or anything, and you had a healthy mental mind, and but then you sort of indulged into sort of eating unhealthy foods just because you couldn't be bothered to cook, for example, can that lead to an imbalance in mental health?
One of the most important things in stress management and I think other coping strategies is you have to take control of yourself and the environment that you're living in. If you lose control over your own self or the environment, then it becomes quite difficult to help such a person. As you mentioned about junk food and things which obviously are not good for our health, you can always go for alternate things. I mean, instead of grabbing something which is deep fried, why not go for something which is grilled or baked? You can still eat the same meat, the same thing that you're craving for, but cooked in a different way, so that's more nutritious rather than bad for your health. You can always find alternative ways. You can go for salads and fruits rather than fried stuff, or things which are quite rich in fatty acids, which will just cause indigestion or problems related to the stomach. And obviously then again, sometimes physiological problems can lead to psychological problems. If you're suffering from any disease, whether it's coronary heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, it will affect your daily functioning, and that can lead to depression and anxiety, just like psychological problem can lead to physical illnesses. So it's like in both the cases you have to be careful. One can lead to another. One can lead to another,
just like Imam Ali Islam's hadith where he said disease is rooted from the stomach.
Exactly. So that's why the Imams have given us guidelines on how to eat, when to eat. Do not fill your stomach. You have to leave space for air, water and food. It's like the Imams have told us to stop eating before we are full. Exactly. So there's a reason why they said that. I mean, no saying or tradition of the prophets or the Imams is without reasoning or logic. So if we just keep those things in our perspective, life could be so much easier.
Yes. So that balance with the du'as and supplications and the salahs that you mentioned earlier in the program, to recite those are very, very important. Thank you so much, sister, for coming on the show and sharing with us very important information. And I hope you at home enjoyed the show and took valid information from the show. Again, I would like to thank Sister Nazia Hussain for coming on the show. I'd like to thank you for watching the show, and inshallah join us for our next show on Friday, which is about motherhood and pregnancy. So please do join us for that show. And if you do have any comments about the show, then please do email at womensview@ahlulbayt.tv. Inshallah, see you on Friday's show. Assalamu alaikum.